Don't waste your actions, heroes. This is chapter 1 of Out of the Abyss. What is that called? Velkynvelve.
Velkynvelve, yes.
And we were starting by talking about the huge cast of NPCs and how you as a GM approached preparing them.
When we're going to talk about it again, because I messed up the audio last time and the first 40 minutes were double audio for some reason. I like the idea of my clothes just randomly changing in the edit. I mean, I'll be honest, if you're a new GM, I'm not sure I'd recommend Out of the Abyss.
That takes us into why we're doing this, I guess, in that we've had some really lovely comments in our videos and on Discord where it looks like, well, the people that are watching are GMs and they are asking Matt for advice, basically.
Big spoilers. If you're going to play this game, stop listening now, go away. So I think probably what we should talk about first is the fact that a lot of GMs buy this adventure, start prepping, get to chapter 1 and go, good grief, there's like a dozen NPCs in the starting area, all of which is a bit overwhelming. How do I differentiate them all? How do I even keep them all in my brain? So I think it's a big concern of a lot of GMs that there's a lot of NPCs, so it's good to go through them. So I just use little cards, like that you might use if you're making a speech or you're making some notes, and I just have bullet points for each character. Those cards are just a good way for me to remember what the voices are. And then again, if that character forms a particular bond with someone or an enmity with someone, I just write it on the card. Now, I think with the nature of Velkynvelve, you're trying to escape. You have the drow holding you prisoner, you're trying to escape. And ultimately, those NPCs serve multiple purposes. They're signposts. They are also for you to sort of get attached to and roleplay with. They are handy to kill as you get out of the escape. So they're kind of a shield for the players, but they're a shield with an emotional attachment if you can get them to like them. And to be honest, even the ones you didn't like, there was a little bit of guilt about leaving them behind, I think, at times. So they serve quite a lot of purposes. Those NPCs kind of give stakes because you care about more than just yourself.
I was thinking they're your initial hook into the adventure. To start with, it's a game about escaping and surviving, and you're forming bonds with other people that want the same thing as you, and it's only later it becomes about the demonic incursion. Right, number 1 in the book is Buppido. MVP, we love him. Cut to footage of our reaction to Buppido here.
Dinner. It is me, Buppido. I would like to eat right now.
Oh my god. Mad.
Mission protect this character.
I'm quite happy to go first. I am invincible.
I use you as a shield.
Tell me about his key personality traits.
So he's a Derro, and Derro are a kind of dwarf, but they're a lot smaller than a shield dwarf or a dwergar. They unfortunately, like a lot of the races in the Underdark, the species in the Underdark, have a horrible history with mind flayers. They are, in the D&D sense, they have sort of forms of madness, which we kind of have to be respectful and a bit careful about how we portray that. But yes, they are a bit unpredictable. He believes that he is basically the god of death, the god of murder. He will pretend to be friends with everyone. He's convinced he is invincible and can't die. It's up to you, the GM, whether that's true or not.
He's very cunning.
The only thing he said in the first person was generally, I am invincible, yeah. Third person was most of the way. He always referred to himself, as Buppido, or Buppido is this, Buppido is that. Anna did a stupid voice for him, which I think made you all instantly endear to him. You were laughing. I think you actually said that you wanted to marry him. Little did you know that you would regret those words. But he's a really good character. And the thing with him is he is always looking for opportunities to off someone. If he can do it without being seen, without being caught, he will try.
So we kept him for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then he took an opportunity to leave. Was that always the plan for him?
I think it depended on how it played out. I always played him by ear. He will naturally gravitate towards Gracklestugh. He is a signpost to
He is a
Gracklestugh,
signpost to Gracklestugh, okay.
where Darrow live, so he will know where it is. My preference, and this happened in Group 1, and I wanted it to happen in Group 2, but I'm open-minded, was that he would at some point kill someone. I like to see it kill as many as I can with him, to be honest, but he would at some point kill someone. It would probably be obvious it was him, and he would run and retreat to Gracklestugh for you to meet him later and obviously deal with him. So he's kind of almost becomes a little mini boss in a way, which is kind of, I boosted him and made him a mini boss a bit later on. Yeah, so make him comedy, make him fun, and then that instantly disarms the party from his murderous urges.
Not an
which
inkling.
makes it all the more beautiful when it's revealed. Now in Group 1, they were going across a chasm with a drop into nothingness, and a few of the NPCs fell off to their death. Group 1 were completely unaware that actually Buppido kicked them off, but none of them got a good enough perception roll to see him do it.
My favourite NPC is Prince Derendil.
Prince Derendil, yes. He's probably mine as well, actually. Group 1 loved him, Group 2 love him. He is a Quaggoth, so he is an 8-9 foot tall, ferocious, furry beast. I don't even know what they're supposed to be. They look like a cross between a yeti and a bear and a werewolf. They're canonically stupid and they don't really talk. They're kind of like intelligence 4. Generally, they're just kind of used by the drow as muscle. They do as they're told.
So
they're very dangerous.
It's pretty disarming when you approach the one in the cell and he talks like Hugh Grant.
Yes, I'm told that, he does talk a little bit like Hugh Grant. I'm not sure I can take credit for that. It wasn't intentional, but yes. Again, he believes that he was an elf that has been cursed and turned into a Quaggoth. So
just in terms of accent, mannerisms, ways you can make him unique immediately. He's a prince, so you went down he's very well spoken. He's got the manners you would not associate with the beasts that he appears to be.
Exactly. That seems kind of logical and simple to me. He's a bit haughty.
What is he a signpost to?
The surface. For me, he's a signpost to the surface. So he will talk about Velkynvelve, which is this elven kingdom. Now, in the book, it's not very clear whether this place even exists or not. In my game, it exists. And the reason it exists is you definitely need to go, I think it's Elven Tower. I hope I haven't got that wrong. But if you Google, and don't you dare Google this, Veronica, or you're out of the group, The Tragic Tale of Derendil is absolutely beautiful. I did it with Group 1, and it was probably the most impactful storyline in the whole first half. He's probably the strongest NPC. He pretty much is, other than maybe Topsy and Turvy for reasons we'll go into. But he is handy. He's got 2 attacks. He's got claw attacks. He doesn't need weapons. He's got quite a lot of hit points in the early days. Again, once you start getting with him, once you get to sort of 7 or 8 and above, he starts to feel a little bit at risk because he just doesn't have the hit points of the other PCs because I didn't level him. In Group 1, in fact, when they got to the surface and that story concluded, they wanted to keep him. So we actually turned him into a PC. I made him a barbarian, and they kept him. So Eldeth is a signpost to Gauntlegrim, which is pretty much the surface. It is a dwarven city, but it's very close to the surface. It's considered a surface city. I've put it into the map view just so the stream can see. So Velkynvelve, which is the prison that you all start in, is down here. And what you'll find is Gauntlegrim is probably 2 months foot travel away. It is a huge distance away. So Eldeth is a shield dwarf. And again, it's up to you how you play her. In the book, it pretty much she's a scout and she's a shield dwarf and she has red hair. And that's pretty much it. That's all they give you. So for me, I wanted to make her quite honourable, quite group orientated. I don't think it's unfair to say quite courageous. She does get to 2 attacks, but doesn't have many hit points. So in the early days, she is super valuable. In the later days, she becomes quite vulnerable. The way I tried to add weight to her was by early on she would talk about her daughter who was back in Gauntlegrim, and she will quite regularly say, if I don't make it, can you take my sword to my daughter? Which unfortunately she lost her sword, so it became her shield, I think. But I think that just gives, again, it's all about adding some emotional weight to what are, in effect, throwaway characters. So what were you going to say? Sorry.
She is one of the more likable characters that you meet in the prison.
Absolutely. And again, with characterization of her, I mean, I do lots of terrible accents in the game.
Love them.
I am fortunate that Veronica doesn't have a great ear for accents, as you often tell me. So she thinks my accents are brilliant. They are terrible, but I'm glad that you like them. Ultimately. But yeah, with her, I come from a Warhammer background. So for me, dwarves are more like Yorkshire or shouldn't compare Lancashire and Yorkshire, should I? Sorry, but they've got that Northern English accent for me. So I made Eldeth have a sort of Yorkshire accent because that's just what I grew up with. I prefer it to the Gimli Scottish accent. In a sea of NPCs, it's kind of good that she's got a different voice. It just, as soon as I talk as her, you know it's her, right? Not that she talks anymore in our game, but too soon.
Yeah.
Too soon. You know, Gauntlegrim, for those that like the Drizzt books, the R.A. Salvatore books, Gauntlegrim is where Bruno Battlehammer, as one of Drizzt's friends, resides. He's a king, effectively. So in my version of Eldeth, she will know Bruno. Even then she could say, well, if you can get here, he'd be willing to talk to you about what we can do about it, give you support and things like that. I did level her up, actually, for the Gauntlegrim chapter. I actually gave her some levels in Cleric, which she sort of gained some faith by what she'd seen and was inspired by the party and all of this good stuff.
Next one, Jimjar.
Yeah.
We didn't spend very much time with him. He died in the escape for us, but I know you used, I believe it was some Elven Tower stuff to make him slightly more interesting.
Jimjar is a deep gnome, Svirf Neblin. He is obsessed with gambling. He just wants to place bets on everything. And in your game, and in the first game, I think everyone found the constant need to put wagers like really irritating.
I think it says in the description in the book, annoying, and it's very easy to find him annoying when he's making essentially trivial bets on life or death matters.
And I seem to recall his characterization was very minimal because I'd learned in the first game that no one liked him.
He's unlikely to survive.
He would just kind of be listening to the conversation and he'd just be like, ha! I'll bet you this much for that. And people would just be like, oh, sod off, generally. But so what people did not realize is he's basically a god of luck, the gnome god of luck. So any players that made a bet with him and won the bet could have potentially had the favor of a god later on in the game, should they have needed it. Although he's a deep gnome and should be a signpost to Blingdenstone, I mean, he is a signpost to Blingdenstone, I probably would have had him disappear before then. This is what gods do. They try and tweak the strands of fate to get the result they want.
Just pawns in a game.
In my mind, he is just there to see the start of something and to try and help you along the way.
Moving on to the shortest lived character, Ront.
Ront is a generic orc, bit of a bully. I think I had him in our game stealing the food of smaller cellmates. And he was a great tool for introducing Derendil, who was hiding in the shadows. You know, he was stealing the food. I think you were standing up to him. Did he hit you, or he threatened to hit you?
He hit you.
Me. And then Derendil came out and pretty much beat him to within an inch of his life. Get the opportunity to show Derendil losing his temper, giving way to this bestial nature, which is not natural to him.
And it gives the party something to unite against within the cell.
Yeah. And I don't think Ront really signposts anywhere. I think Ront is a bit of muscle. He's another one that's quite handy in the early days as a bit of a fighter. But ultimately, he's kind of there for you to hate. It's the one thing I'll say as a DM. You've got all these NPCs. If the players don't like some of them, make examples of them. Have them killed, have them fall off a cliff, have them eaten by spiders.
Have them killed by Buppido. Oh, that was awful.
Exactly. He's pretty two-dimensional.
Yes.
He's just a tool in multiple senses.
So his accent is my favourite.
Really?
Yeah.
Did he have one?
Yeah. Danny Dyer.
I didn't think I gave him an accent. Maybe my
you did.
natural.
Again, this might be just going back to the last the last time we recorded this and it didn't actually record. I just remember you saying, "You slag."
Did I?
I will find the footage, insert footage here.
He will
Hopefully we
steal
can just
food.
go a bit rougher. I think you were
Yeah,
monosyllabic.
I don't think I did anything other than talk like that.
All right, Danny Dyer.
Yeah, you slag.
Sorry. Isn't that what Danny Dyer says a lot on his tenders?
The next one in the book is Sarith.
Sarith is a drow. He is quite dour and miserable and will complain of headaches and feeling rough, and he will be keen to head towards Neverlight Grove. He's drawn there.
So you did mention his if he managed to make it out, his head would have exploded.
Yeah. So group one they weren't like group two, who got themselves a massive ship and sailed around the Dark Lake incredibly quickly. They were in a little rowboat at one point with him, and his head exploded in a spores and fungus, which is what will eventually happen to him.
So is he slowly becoming a spore servant, or
effectively? Yeah, he's infected with something, and he's a bit two-dimensional. He's not got the potential depth, but maybe I'm just missing it. I mean, if you've run this and you've got ideas and you did Sarith differently, I've read plenty of stories where people loved Sarith. I think it all comes down to how you play him.
And I think the party, because the thing is, our group is made up of mostly Underdark races, so we know the Underdark, we knew the Drow hierarchy, had knowledge about Menzoberranzan. If you have a party of surface dwellers, he's the only Drow in there. He is very useful. He can give players that information. Yeah,
and ultimately he does know quite a lot about Menzoberranzan. He'll probably know quite a bit about Velkynvelve. He might know the layout of it. I think he's accused of murder, I seem to recall. So he's a prisoner of his own people for crimes, which it's up to you whether he actually did it or not. But yeah, he can give you a lot of inside information. If the players are struggling a bit with Velkynvelve or figuring out how to escape, then you can use him to feed them information.
Moving on to Shuushar, the Kuatoa.
Shuushar is a Kuatoa. He's a fish person, banished by his own people because he is, in their eyes, a weirdo, because he is peace-loving and a pacifist. He is such a pacifist that he will not raise his fists at all, but he does know where Slubladup is, which is the Kuatoa village, which arguably is where your party will head first because it's a week away, whereas everything else is a month away, 20 to 28 days away. So it's the logical place to go. It's nearest, but he is an outcast, so he kind of doesn't want to go there, but he knows where it is, and he knows it's the first place to get, any kind of resources, weapons, food, all of that good stuff.
Would he want to go back?
I don't think he does, no. I think he's sad that he can't be with his own people because they don't understand him. I don't think he liked him particularly.
Well, he wasn't useful. We were looking for people as a party that would help us to get out, and not helping in combat wasn't useful to us. But I guess it could make him quite sympathetic in the same way Stool is, and that it makes him a little bit helpless.
It does, yeah. He's someone to protect. He could be quite fun. I assume
he's quite kind in the way that Eldeth is.
Very kind, yeah, very kind. I didn't really know how to voice him, although we have since decided that.
We've decided, yeah.
that Kuatoa should have Australian accents because they are from down under.
And the Drow shouldn't have Australian accents because the Drow, because of their society, are generally evil inclined, and you can't be evil when you have an Australian accent. You're just too lovable.
So I think Shuushar's got a lot of potential. It kind of feels like you should do a full-on fishy, weird voice, but I was a bit intimidated by that. I'm not going to lie. So I did tend to play him down a bit because I didn't.
Fishy, weird voice.
Yeah, gargly or whatever.
Just do everything like what I do.
If I'm honest with myself, group one, I kind of killed him. Buppido pushed him off something.
He sounds like an easy target for Buppido.
He is a soft target.
Now, the actual MVP, Stool.
Stool.
We love him. Protect the baby.
Stool is very important, actually. He is a myconid sprout, so he is a mushroom baby, basically. I treat him as, in my mind, he's sort of 7 or 8 years old. He's kind of that kind of...
Mushroom baby.
Yeah, he's kind of that kind of age, so I always played him as a 7 or 8 year old, quite innocent. I think it's important to know that myconids generally are probably the goodest of the good races in the Underdark anyway. They are a very innocent species. They don't understand concepts like war. They don't actually kill. Yeah, well, Stool is your little... He's really important. He is a signpost to Neverlight Grove because he's a baby and he wants to go home. But the most important feature he has is that he can do telepathic spores 3 times per day, which effectively let you speak to anyone, regardless of whether you speak the language or not. So he's the universal translator. And
I didn't know until I read the first chapter that those are called rapport spores because we just keep referring to it as spaffing.
You do.
And rapport spores is so much nicer. It's brilliant. Why aren't we using that?
But yeah, I think Stool's really important. And the way I just play Stool like a 7, 8 year old, very innocent, but I also play him like a sponge. So in my mind, myconids are not exposed to the broader world. So I just have him absorb everything that he sees around him.
You did that so well in our game, yeah.
He starts off very cute and very nice. And the more minds he connects with as well, he's getting connections to all these different people. So yeah, he's quite murderous by the end.
He's just
like
seen so much murder. And you don't really think
thinks...
about it until this little baby mushroom's running around with a knife and you realise you've essentially traumatised a child.
Yeah, it's horrible. He's horrible, but yeah. But I enjoyed the role play around that because you all love Stool, but he's wonderful. And he is the most vulnerable of all. He's got less than 10 hit points. He can't really do much.
I bet his movement speed's terrible.
20. He's very slow.
I remember I got Derendil to pick him up.
And interestingly, both groups got Stool home, or at least to his people. So that shows that he's the weakest character, the slowest character, but everyone cares the most for him. I think probably because he's a child, right? There is this drive. You are all so determined to get him home. And he would constantly be like, "Can I go home now?" And which obviously pulled on the heartstrings as well, because he doesn't understand.
And another way he was quite useful, actually, was when we were travelling on foot, they were familiar with all of the flora and fauna, if you will, which mushrooms were edible and were not, when we had nothing to eat. So keeping them is very useful.
He is a mushroom expert, yeah.
And finally, Topsy and Turvy.
Finally, have we done all of them?
We have.
Topsy and Turvy are deep gnomes. They are twins. I think it describes it in the book as one male, one female. I kind of have them almost hard to tell apart. They're quite scruffy. Their hair's a bit matted. I had them talking slightly strangely. They're a bit standoffish. They are a signpost to Blingden Stone, but they don't really want to go there for their own reasons.
Where do they actually want to go?
Anywhere but there.
But there.
And the reason for that is that they are were-rats. So they have got lycanthropy. They are were-rats. And they're a bit like Shuushar there. They don't feel very welcome at home because of what they are. And
so it's interesting because we've talked about the differences between the first group you ran it for and our group. In the first group, you revealed it because they trusted.
They loved them. They really cared for Topsy and Turvy. They were nervous. They were standoffish. They would tend to hang back, and that made group one lean in to say what's going on. Whereas group two would just, I think you had enough of your own stuff on your mind, and you were very much like, well, if they're going to be like that. We
were very utility. Your value is in your utility, and if you stand back, you're not helping. But whereas the way you revealed...
Yeah, the reality is they're were-rats, so unless they're hit with silver or magical weapons, they actually can't be hurt.
Which explains how they made it out somehow.
They are, yeah, exactly. They are insanely good in combat for that reason in the early days. But again, they don't have a lot of hit points. They didn't do a lot of damage, but they're immune to normal physical damage, I think.
But an alternative way to reveal their were-ratism is how you did it with our party.
Where they were locked away. They locked themselves in a little cell at the back of the ship, I seem to remember. Because it's the Underdark, you can't tell when the full moon is, right? I mean, I think D&D kind of has lycanthropy as they can choose to change. The way I do it is I will always say that around the full moon, they will change involuntarily and they will have a bit less control and they might be a bit more dangerous.
So they appreciated us protecting them to an extent because that's them protecting us in reverse.
You fed them, you allowed them to go with you, you took them on the ship. They were better off than where they were. You didn't leave them on the stairs, Shuushar, Sarith, Jimjar, to die at the hands of the drow, or at least be recaptured. So yeah, but that was fun. And I think actually Hazel's character did contract lycanthropy and was well on her way to becoming a were-rat. But you cured it in time. The way I ran that was something that I saw on Reddit, I think, which is for the first few days it's cured as a disease, and then after that it becomes a curse and a lot harder to remove. So it worked out quite nicely.
Another dimension to the party's story. And in terms of accents, mannerisms, to single them out, you sort of had them talking over each other. You said something interesting about the way that rats wash their hands. You were sort of doing that when they were
I would. Yeah, it doesn't always work on camera, but yeah, they'd constantly be sort of playing with their hands and just kind of hand over hand when they were talking. I'll be honest, they were probably a bit Gollum-y in the voices,
a bit nasal,
a bit ratty.
They sort of talk as a collective. They said we a lot rather than I.
They said we, and I would basically do exactly the same voice from each, and I would talk and then have them. I would almost say something, and then the other one would be like, yes, that's and repeat it almost. So it sounds like two people that are kind of the same person. And the reality is, if you get to know them or you get to Blingdenstone and still have them with you, group 2, they can offer an incredible amount of insight into the politics, the history, the lore of Blingdenstone. So they know a hell of a lot, which can be really, really useful. But maybe you'll find them again. Who knows?
I want to save scum our game.
It's not Baldur's Gate, sorry. We can't go back. We'd never finish the campaign if we kept reloading.
Can we talk about the drow?
Yes.
Because this is maybe a bit harder because there's, would you say, 4 main drow, and in that they are the villains in this chapter. A bit harder to distinguish between because ultimately you're just looking at them as your captors.
You're aware of Ilvara. She is effectively a high priest and is running Velkynvelve, which is this prison where they bring people that have been captured to be sent on to Mensa Branson.
She is nasty. So in my mind, she's a cleric. She will kill you to prove a point and then bring you back, raise you from the dead, just to say, even dying's not going to let you escape. You are here doing what I want for as long as I want. There is no escape. She is cruel. So it's that kind of psychological warfare. Likewise with the NPCs, she will kill them to make an example. And I think with that in mind, you can really ramp up the danger and make them feel like they are stuck in this place with this horrible person. There is a theme throughout the Underdark of things being twisted and turned in a way. Because of the demon lords, it is having that effect. You have something in the Underdark called Fezres, which is this magical energy, and that will actually transmit the insanity as well of these demon lords. So it's kind of, she is part of that. She has got nastier than ever. She becomes absolutely obsessed with the party, which is why she's pursuing you across the whole of the Underdark. So she's a good character. She's great. She is stereotypical evil.
When you're saying like this drow is a typical drow, the way that they're cruel, something about Out of the Abyss, the fact that it has so many chapters and you visit these places, you can not justify, explain, explore why those races have been built that way.
Yeah, well, they're a product of the 80s. Let's be honest. When they just wanted monsters and bad guys and girls that you'd just go in and you'd fight, and there wasn't much nuance. I like the idea that the Drow Society is kind of like a trap. It's like a web. They're kind of stuck in it, and they have to play the game because they're on the board. But actually, the game's horrible, and you don't. The only way to get out of it is not to play it. But they're so entrenched in this toxic culture that is based on Lolth, who is a chaos god. They're just toys to her.
Drow society is evil. Drow are not necessarily evil. We've got 2 Drow in our party, but the society is so poisonous, and people like Ilvara are probably part of the reason it's so poisonous.
Now, under her, you have Asha, who is a more junior priest, so a cleric. Again, looking to progress, but being stuck in this outpost isn't good for anyone's career, to be honest. So they're all looking to sort of make some sort of impact. Those two, though, generally get on. Ilvara is a lot more powerful than Asha, so Asha is generally going to follow what the older cleric tells her to do. The interesting one, I think, is Jorlan and Shoor. So Jorlan is a male, so in Drow society, a second-class citizen. There's no other way of putting it. He's a warrior, and he is quite horribly disfigured. So he was before whatever happened to him. And in our game, Hazel had said, "Oh, I probably got put in prison because I poisoned a drow." And in my game, she tried to poison Asha. That was something we came up between us. It went wrong. Jorlan drank whatever it was that Asha was supposed to drink, and that has caused his face to, burned him and disfigured him, but didn't kill him. Now, Jorlan was kind of working with Ilvara before that point, and she kind of took him as a lover, but really she was just, just using him. But once he was poisoned, he was not good looking anymore, so she just discarded him. So Jorlan, in my mind, and it does say this in the book, he's bitter, so he will look for an opportunity to make Ilvara look stupid. And then the other drow character, so it's an elite drow, same as Jorlan, is Shoor. And Shoor is basically just the next one in line who Ilvara has said, "Well, you're good looking, so I'll have you for a bit." It's very cold and emotionless. I think a lot of the drow stuff in this, it's a bit stereotypical, but it does work.
This is the thing, you've got limited time with so many people. It's pretty much who the players gravitate towards, no matter how hard you work on them being
and that's
individual.
The thing. That is the thing. I only added depth to the ones that they liked. I wouldn't recommend filling out all the NPCs because they might just die when they first walk down the steps, and then you've wasted your time.
Well, no, we always say, well, you taught me, you can always reuse stuff that you've thought of on a different character or in a different place, yada yada, so it's not wasted time. Very true.
Very true. Just tell me to shut up, Veronica.
Shut up, Matt. I'm just going to keep that as I can use that as the end card to every video. You've given me too much power.
Could be our little outro. Shut up, Matt.
Shut up, Matt. There we go. Another one. I can do it a variety of ways.
That one had slightly more venom, which I liked.
Thanks for watching, and if you've enjoyed this, please don't forget to like and subscribe.